Oh yeah, South Park, the Snow Day game. I have not played it yet. Hold on, the trailer just dropped here.
Like being trapped indoors without power during an actual blizzard, playing South Park Snow Day had me frigidly wishing I could be anywhere else. A direct follow-up to the story.
Oh no. Oh no. That's not good.
Line of 2 excellent turn-based RPGs and a decent mobile spin-off, this cooperative 3D hack and slash admirably tries a lot of new things, but it throws the baby out with the bathwater in the process, leaving us with a monotonous, slipshod mess. The controls are awkward and clumsy. The weapons and abilities are limp and uninteresting, and even with only 5 levels that can be completed in as many hours, it still feels like it drags on far too long. Worse than that though, all the humor and shocking moments South Park and its recent games are known for is utterly missing in action, leaving little to recommend about this hollow, repetitious dud.
Yeah, just get on with it, Butters.
I don't know what we did to deserve going from a masterful Obsidian RPG that aptly captured South Park's attitude to this, but boy does the fall hurt.
Yeah, I mean, it is weird to pivot from those games to this. They partnered with Obsidian on the Stick of Truth, and then they partnered with Ubisoft on the Fractured But Whole. And Stick of Truth will always hold a special place in my heart because it's really good. It's very short. It's like 8 to 9 hours long, and you can break it real bad. If you do like a blood build, Jesus, like you can stack blood like 4 or 5 times. And I one-shotted the boss, the final boss of the game, where like I hit him with my blood draw thing. It stacked like 5 blood things on him, and then a turn cycled, and I think it's at the start of his turn he takes the damage. So after the turn cycled, he took a ridiculous amount of damage from the blood effect and then just drops dead. Like, it was crazy. It was very, very good. But that's what I love about RPGs, when you can min-max them and break them. It's good fun. The Fractured But Whole was also pretty good. It was much longer, much bigger, a very different combat system that wasn't as focused on gear and kitting it up. It wasn't as traditional of like an RPG, but still pretty good, and also very outrageous and just crazy. And so I would have hoped that they could have continued to like go with that and grow it, but apparently they just pivoted off and did this, which it's never looked very good in the trailers we've seen. It's always been like, okay, that's weird, we'll check it out, but it sounds like it's just a mess.
Whoa, kid! It's so beautiful! No skin, everybody! No skin!
South Park Snow Day is a perplexingly boring third-person multiplayer game where you and up to 3 of your unluckiest friends smack and blast your way through waves of samey first graders. Aside from some mildly interesting card-based leveling mechanics and an amusing one-liner here and there are remarkably few bright spots in this misadventure.
You know what desperate, stupid people want? NFTs.
The vast majority of your time will be spent trudging through 5 levels of repetitive and tedious hack and slash combat that feels like it's straight out of 2008. Even more disappointing is that it never once made me gasp or guffaw at an outrageous situation.
What? Ah!
South Park: The Stick of Truth saw us spelunking in Mr. Slave's large intestine, dodging genitalia in the world's most messed up rendition of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and questing in the 2-dimensional and entirely accurately represented country of Canada. It was filled with hilarious moments that made me question how in the heck Ubisoft avoided an adults-only rating from the ESRB. The same was largely true in the follow-up from Ubisoft's internal studio,
He said Ubisoft 2014. It was Obsidian, though. Did Ubisoft publish it? Yeah, it's technically published by Ubisoft, but it's developed by Obsidian. Okay. It just sounded weird.
The same was largely true in the follow-up from Ubisoft's internal studio, The Fractured But Whole. Snow Day returns to the Stick of Truth's make-believe fantasy setting, but here you just occasionally fart every once in a while in lieu of actual jokes. Sure, there are some very minor moments that made me smile, but they're so few and far between that they only ever serve to get my hopes up before dashing them all over again. This is perhaps the most toothless South Park adventure ever created.
There's blood everywhere.
The story is straightforward and one note, as you and the South Park gang decide to continue your fantasy adventures during a snow day, and you proceed to fight against them and their hordes of minions in battle one at a time. The whole thing lasts about 5 hours, and very little of note happens along the way. There are no big surprises, zero shocking gross-out moments, and even the characters you know and love behave in a bizarrely tame fashion compared to how you'd expect after all these years.
I wonder, what's this rated? What's this one rated? Because I wonder if they were trying to get like a younger audience, that it's so tame, you know? No way this is rated M just for language. See, I would have thought, based on how toned down it is, I would have been like, okay, maybe they're targeting like E for everyone 10 and up, or E for everyone, and they're trying to get like kids to buy this. But if it's still rated M, I don't know why it's so dumbed down then, you know? Like, I don't get it. Like, for what?
The wholly unhinged Randy makes a few appearances where he's hoarding toilet paper, but he never flies off the rails or delivers any memorable one-liners.
I'm so happy! I found this chest full of toilet paper!
Even Cartman, whose entire personality is being the biggest monster imaginable, is mostly well-behaved the whole way through, despite briefly doing a stint as the bad guy himself.
I'm the wizard. I'm the only one that gets to use banned spells.
Instead of quality lowbrow jokes, you spend most of the time listening to the most irritating first graders repeat the same lines over and over again during combat, like this.
I also wonder how direct their involvement was. Because if you don't know, Matt Stone and Trey Parker, they bought the Casa Bonita location, the actual restaurant, here in Colorado, down by Denver. And previous to that, I've been to Casa Bonita a few times, not since they bought it, but before they bought it. And it's always been disgusting. Like, so bad. You can't even, an entire floor of the building, it's like 3-4 floors of like different tiers of rooms that you can eat in, and dining rooms and stuff. And one of them just smelled like raw sewage. Like, it was horrifying. You would go to eat and it would smell either like sewage or bleached water. If you got into the good area that didn't stink or smell like anything, the food was like worse than Taco Bell, Mexican food. And you could then go to the arcade and all the machines were always broken. It just wasn't good. Like, every part of it was just bad. And you would only ever go because it was in that South Park episode. That's the only reason. So they bought it after they signed that big deal with Viacom, or around the same time that they signed the big deal with Viacom and pocketed a ton of cash. So they came in, they bought it for like $12 million or something. And then they spent, or I don't know if they announced how much they bought it for, but they've spent like 14 million on renovating it and redoing everything. And apparently now it's quite nice. I haven't been since they reopened because it's been very, very busy. It's tough to get a spot, but they just now started opening it up a little bit. So we should do that. We should go. But they have spent a lot of time and effort fixing that place up. That took a lot of their effort for the last like 2 years, is that they were always there at the restaurant, like helping figure out what needs to be done and doing all of that, staying in Denver while they did it, is my understanding. So maybe that's why they had less involvement here, as they were too focused on the Casa Bonita renovation. I just don't know what happened here, that this is still got the South Park name on it, but it seems to be like, it just doesn't have any of the soul of South Park, you know? It's just weird. It's weird. Yeah, dude, Casa Bonita, you don't go to Casa Bonita, or at least you didn't go to Casa Bonita for edible food. You'd go just to say you went to Casa Bonita. But now apparently they have like a new chef, and it's actually pretty good. Like, it's apparently a pretty good time now, which you'd hope. I mean, if you spend $13 million doing something and renovating something, you'd hope that it's significantly better. But I guess sometimes that's not necessarily the case. But I'm just trying to think of what could have led to this being so terrible when the last few games that they participated in were much, much better, you know?
This.
I'm also going to mute the mic real quick while I just swap this out. Otherwise, it'll be like popping and staticky.
I thought it would feel different. Yes, I'm slain!
That appallingly flat writing makes an already bad game not even worth pushing through for a few laughs. And that's an extremely hard pill to swallow as a decades-long South Park fan.
Can I have a do-over?
You can't call your mom in to fight for you, Cartman. Fucking cry about it, Kyle, you little bitch.
After setting the bar so low, it was difficult to imagine, but the untidy, soulless combat that accounts for the vast majority of playtime is Snow Day's biggest miss. You select one of 3 melee weapons: twin daggers,
I have a boob.
a sword and shield,
Eek.
or a battle axe. And one of 3 ranged weapons: a bow and arrow, a wizard staff, or a wand to bring into battle, allowing for precious few options for how to play. Not that it matters really, because thanks to the floaty and imprecise controls, none of these choices feel good to begin with. Each of the ranged weapons does damage from afar, requiring a cooldown or charge time that's so long it's almost always not worth the trouble. All 3 of the melee weapons are at least more reliable for damage, but don't lock onto enemies, have awful hit detection, and when you do connect, it feels a bit like dueling someone with a helium balloon.
Ow. I'm dead.
The only other major tools in your arsenal are the 2 equally underwhelming powers you get to equip, selected from 8 total options, which include stuff like this healing totem that regenerates nearby allies' HP for a short amount of time, or this deployable turret that fires snowballs at passersby. These are at least more interesting than any of the base weapon options, but since they're recharged by doing damage and scoring kills with your other weapons, definitely don't solve the problems with combat. One of Snowday's only good ideas are upgradable cards that you collect as you fight through levels. These grant passive benefits and allow you to cultivate a build throughout each stage, then disappear once that level is over, adding a minor roguelike element to the adventure.
Hope that's more to your liking.
You might find interesting cards that augment your healing totem, enabling it to do things like revive downed teammates, have you deal more damage to enemies near it, or increase its area of effect. Or you can chase riskier cards, like one that turns your otherwise weak wand attack into a high DPS flame-spewing hose that lights you on fire too as a trade-off.
I mean, it seems like there's a lot of potential here. Parts of it don't look bad. It's just South Park is a game is a franchise that's so built on like the irreverent jokes and the outrageous humor and things. It just seems really odd to choose to design a game that's centered around kind of ignoring the story and just focusing on sort of generic hack and slash gameplay in a co-op setting. I wonder if it's monetized out the ass too. Maybe that's part of it.
While combat never stops being a sloppy, disappointing slog, collecting cards to augment your playstyle, then strategically leveling them up to make those abilities more powerful, injects a modicum of variety into it.
I'm dead.
The issue is that Snowday isn't a roguelike in any other way. You don't have to start the entire campaign over when you die, you just start at the beginning of the level.
You suck.
And even on the hardest difficulty, none of the levels are so challenging that you won't probably beat them on the first try. So there's not a ton of pressure to create a really solid build since there's little to optimize for. And even if you do manage to assemble a deck of cards you like as a build starts to come together, each level ends after an hour or less, at which point you go back to 0. I would love to see a better game try this idea, because here it's implemented in a way that only barely improves an overwhelmingly bad time.
Oh yeah, that's powerful.
Oh.
Another example of a poorly thought out card mechanic is the single random bullshit card you get at the beginning of each level that lets you activate a more powerful ability a limited number of times. These might let you call down a rain of fiery meteors for straight DPS,
Owie.
or recover your health and make you invisible for a short period of time to escape danger. But none of them are all that interesting, and they only have a minor impact on gameplay since you usually only cast them 2 or 3 times per level. What's worse though is that enemies get bullshit cards too, and they do things like replace normal weapons with high damage laser swords.
Everybody loves a laser sword at Christmas.
Or give the bad guys protective bubble shields that make them significantly more beefy.
We've got protection.
In most cases, these cards serve only to significantly draw out the length of a fight, which is already pretty unbearable to begin with.
I hit you. Blocked it.
This is especially true in the revolting Horde mode, available as free DLC, in which you're subjected to waves of enemies in an arena. This format really dials up all the worst parts of Snow Day and cuts out any hope of stumbling upon jokes or story along the way.
I mean, it's almost like if you have to understand what you're getting into with this game. You're not going to be getting like the fun South Park irreverent humor. You're going to be getting like a generic sort of single A, double A scale hack and slash game that's more akin to something from 2008 than anything that's super modern in terms of live service offerings or extended gameplay offerings. And maybe if you go into that with it, or into it with that expectation, it's fine. But it just is coming off of all of these other South Park games and then the show and everything. It's really tough to go and just be like, okay, so it's South Park, but it's missing all the South Park stuff that's like really unique to it. You know, it's like, what's the point? Why did this have to be South Park then?
In these nightmare scenarios, the enemies are given a whole bunch of bullshit cards, which causes this to happen.
Bullshit!
The enemy played a bullshit card.
Welp, at least this
Did they
mechanic
just
lives
not
up to
test
its
it?
name.
No.
Ha! The Marshwalkers just made a way out.
It's seriously, it's like they just didn't play test it at all. They just, that's crazy.
I'm just doing my job.
We know exactly what a great South Park game can look like, and South Park Snow Day couldn't be farther from it. I'm a huge fan of throwing out the rulebook to try something completely fresh, especially in this age of samey sequels and forever live service games that increasingly play it safe. But this bold attempt at a new direction misses the mark so drastically, I'm aghast at just how sideways things went. Whether it's due to the thoroughly unenjoyable combat or the uncharacteristically toothless and unfunny story,
I said screw you, you get it. Never mind.
I can't recommend anyone waste their time on this cooperative lost cause, even my fellow diehard South Park fans.
I mean, I think it could have been cool to do like an open world RPG in the same vein as the previous ones, but not turn-based. Maybe even with like a real-time combat system or something with this 3D art style that's reminiscent of the 2D art style from the show, but this still, you know, is a little bit more dynamic. That could have been super cool, but this just ain't it. It just ain't it. It's a big old swing and a miss. And it's too bad because like I was expecting probably like a 6 out of 10. Probably like it's bad, but it still could be fun for like an evening or an afternoon or something. And if you can buy it for $5-10, who cares, right? But instead, it just seems that there's almost nothing in terms of redeeming qualities to it. It costs $30. The deluxe is $50. My question is, we'll have to check back on this in like a week or two. So I'll need one of you guys in chat to like remind me of this, because I want to check this in a week or two and just get an idea of how many people are still buying it and playing it. Because sometimes games that have strong IP or like larger outside appeal to core gamers could still do well. And like this is also launching on the Switch. And on the Switch, I think there's a lot of kids and like preteens that probably still buy it and probably still have a good time with it. Even if it is kind of broken and not very well done. It's just, this might be one of those games that doesn't really suffer that much from negative reviews. It might be like, yeah, it's bad, but I'm still having fun because it's South Park. Unfortunately, a lot of companies can get away with that with big licensed IP. Like you just look up some of these licensed games and you're like, how is that? What? Like the classic is you look on the App Store and you see how many licensed IP are used for crappy mobile games. And they are making millions and millions and millions of dollars off of those mobile games. And it's just because, yeah, they're terrible, but they are from a familiar IP for these people that are playing it. And that's all they really needed to justify downloading it. And then the game sucks, but it's manipulative enough that they keep playing it. To be fair, IGN gave Prey a 4. Well, the important thing to remember, because people point to that as like, see, IGN has no idea what they're doing. They gave Prey a 4 because the game was so broken they couldn't finish it. And even working one-on-one with the developers, they couldn't get a fix for finishing the game. So they reached a point in the story where they couldn't finish it, and the devs didn't even know how to fix it. And so they gave it a 4 because it was unplayable. Like you could not finish the game. What was there was really good, but you couldn't finish the game.